Hey, this is Matthew from MiniWarGaming.com, and this video is a continuation of our series, The Creation of an Endless Swarm. Now, what I'm going to show you in this video is how I've been magnetizing my Carnifexes. If there's one race in all of 40k and fantasy that seems to use magnets the most, it would be the Tyranids, and specifically with the Carnifex. Because you literally can create all sorts of different types of Carnifexes, from Carnifexes that are really good at shooting, to ones that are just close combat, and then there's ones that are mixes of that. And then the shooting ones can be ones that are good at taking out tanks, or ones that are good at taking out tons of infantry. Since there's so many different options with the Carnifex, it is hard to design one and create it and then be happy with it later on. There's always situations where you wish you gave it some other biomorph or some other different option. So what we do instead, and what a lot of people do, is they magnetize their Carnifex limbs so they can swap them out. This is useful for many other types of units as well, whether you're playing Tyranids or not. But we're going to be focusing on how I magnetize the Carnifexes, because we've done 5 Carnifexes. So I've already done 4 of them, so we're going to do the 5th one right here in this video. You're going to see how we're going to do it. And when you finish, you should end up with something like this. This is an assembled, unprimed, unpainted Carnifex, and all of the parts are completely magnetized. And they're using rare earth magnets, so they are very powerful, so they hold very well, and everything's magnetized. If you want to take a close-up, you can see everything I can take off of here. So this is a close combat Carnifex with scything talons and crushing claws and tusks, and he has the spine back as well, or spine banks. So the scything talons give him an extra attack, the crushing claws give him D6 attacks, and the tusks gives him 2 attacks when he charges rather than just 1. And then this allows him to shoot out some spikes. I can give him whatever I want there. So I could remove the scything talons and give him something else. I can remove the crushing claws and give him something else. I can remove his head and give him a different kind of head, because there's actually 5 or 6 choices there, and I can even remove this part of his carapace, and there's 3 of these to choose from. So you can hear that just from the click, but there's a nice solid bond in there. So we remove all of that. And some people even go as far in the tail. You have 3 different options with the tail as well. I didn't magnetize that, although I could have. I just chose one because I don't often change the type of tail that I use. So you can see here, if you look around, we've got all these magnets on this bare Carnifex. And if you look really closely, you'll see green in there. That's green stuff. And you can see mistakes that I made with my Dremel tool, which you'll see, but that's okay because it all gets covered up in the end. And overall, it takes me about 45 minutes to an hour to magnetize an entire Carnifex. So of course, we're going to speed up this video so that you don't have to watch a full hour of me clipping and everything. So here is what you're going to need. First off, you need your Carnifex sprues. I got these from Battle Forces. So this is my 5th one that I'm putting together. So we have all the different biomorphs. And we're going to be using pretty much everything on here, except for some of the smaller spikes and everything. And then the other materials that we need, I use a Dremel tool, a handheld drill. This one's a very low voltage one, so it's not actually that powerful. It doesn't have huge settings that can drill through anything that I want, but it drills through plastic and pewter just fine. If you don't want to spend the $100 it takes to get a Dremel tool, instead just spend a few dollars on the drill bits. Now this drill bit is 7/32, 7/32 inches. And the reason I chose that is because the magnets that I used for the majority of the Carnifex are 3/16 of an inch. So this drill bit is just slightly larger than the magnets. Now you could probably get away with a drill bit that's exactly the same size, but it might be a little harder to get it to fit. So I have them be a bit bigger, and then I fill in the gaps with green stuff, which you will find out. So that's another thing that you're going to need. You're going to need magnets. You're going to need 2 types of magnets. These ones are 3/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch, and then the other type are 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. And you can buy those at our online store, store.miniwargaming.com. We do sell rare earth magnets, and they do have a permanent hold, so they'll last for years. As long as you don't put them in an oven at, like, I think it's 400 degrees or 500 degrees, then they start to lose their magnetism. So no guarantees if you bake your magnets. You also need a pair of clippers, clip off the sprues, a hobby knife or an X-Acto knife, whatever you want to call it, and that's just to clean up things. I use this to clean up bits of sprue. 2 types of glue. We have our plastic glue and we have our super glue. And both, of course, you can buy at store.miniwargaming.com. And a glass of water. I use this mainly to keep the green stuff from sticking to my hands and to the tools. And then a very, very important ingredient is green stuff. Now, this is actually blue and yellow stuff is what it really is, but when you mix it, it becomes green. And you can get that at greenstuffit.com.
Green stuff. That's right. Make your miniatures awesome. Sorry, we are in a tutorial.
And then this is just kind of the color scheme we're going to be going with our ice knits, but we won't go in too closely because it's a secret. So I have the 1 drill bit for the 7/32. You could get another drill bit for the 1/8 as well, but I've been using the Dremel tool, so I've been kind of cheating there. And then over here, we just have other parts of the tools for the Dremel kit. Now the one that I actually use, if you want to take a little close up here, is this one is a drill bit, or it's actually more a rough edge. It's not a drill bit per se, but it comes to a point. And if you're using a Dremel tool, it'll be a lot easier if you have something that comes to a point. Yeah, this is one of the drilling pieces, although there's other ones as well. But you notice that it's flat on the top. So when it goes to drilling small surfaces, if it's flat on the top, it's a lot easier for it to slip and hit your hand. But by having the point, you'll find that it'll be guided a lot more. So I prefer this bit. So whatever bit you're using, try to use one that comes to a point, and you'll have a lot more control over what you do. So why don't we go through all the steps now in order to make your magnetized Carnifex. Let's go through all the different steps of how to assemble and magnetize your Carnifex. The very first things that you have to do are also the most obvious, and that is simply to remove the pieces from the sprues. I just use my clippers for that. And I'm not too careful with this, just careful enough not to cut through parts that I shouldn't cut through. So I've just cut them all off. I haven't done any cleaning up of the sprues. I usually clean up the sprues or the pieces as I pick them up and use them. So the very first thing that I do is I'm going to magnetize the main body. We're actually going to magnetize it before I put it together. And the reason for that is because we need to drill into all these joints, but there's not a lot of plastic there, so we end up drilling through it all the way through. So when you try to place a magnet there, it's easy for it to fall through. So we're going to be doing some green stuff work to help keep the magnets in place. You'll see what I mean. It's pretty straightforward. So we'll start with these two bodies. Take your X-Acto knife and just find all these places where there's a little extra plastic hanging off, and you just shave it off. You're just cleaning it up here. You can also use a file for this. A lot of people decide to use files, but I find that using an X-Acto knife is a lot quicker. Be careful not to cut your hands. Yeah, just cut in small motions. It reduces the chance of cutting yourself. Alright, so now that these two pieces are cleaned up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Dremel tool and I'm just going to drill right through it. If you're just using your drill bit, you can do this as well. You just put it in there and you just turn it. And you can see that I'm actually drilling a hole. Now, the disadvantage of using the drill bit, unless you have a hand drill, is that this is sharp. So as you're turning it, after a while it can wear out your hands. So I could just keep doing that and I can eventually get through. It doesn't take very long. But I'm going to use my Dremel tool because I didn't buy one of these so I could do it by hand. So for this one, I'm just going to turn on my Dremel tool here and then I'm just going to drill through and I'm going to clean it out. So this is not wide enough for the magnet, so I just drill in and then I just clean it out like this. So just watch and you'll see exactly what I mean. See how quick that went through, and it's nice and clean. If there's any pieces that you have to shave off, you can grab your knife or something else. So I'm just going to do that to all four holes. Now the hole closest here touches the body as well, so just make sure you don't drill through this part of the body. And you notice I put clean through, and this is much bigger than the magnet. Don't worry about that. In fact, that's good. I'm going to do the rest now. Okay, so now that we have our two pieces with the holes in them, we're going to use green stuff as a backing, so that when we put the magnets in, it squishes into the green stuff. So we have a bit of blue and yellow stuff here, which you can buy at greenstuffit.com. Alright, so this is where we bring up our handy dandy glass of water, or plastic cup of water. What I'm going to use this for is just to moisten my fingers, because that way the green stuff doesn't stick to you. And I constantly moisten my fingers. As soon as they get dry, I moisten them again. And then I'm going to take a bit of blue stuff. That might be enough. And get an equal amount of yellow stuff. There we go. See, blue and yellow. And then with our hands being nice and moist, we mix it together and we make green stuff. So, green stuff is mixed. You know it's mixed when it's green. And then I take this piece, and from the inside, I squish it in here. So when you look over here, you can see the green stuff pushing through. So this is the backing, and the magnets will stick on right here. And we'll use super glue as well, just to really solidify the bond in the back. And this doesn't have to be pretty whatsoever, because this is going to be completely hidden. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? So now it's time to put in our first magnets. So now I'm going to teach you a bit about magnets. The magnets that you buy from us are polarized so that they fit like this. So the north is one way and south is the other way. I don't know which one's north and which one's south, doesn't matter. As long as I remember which side is which. And I just scrape on right there, so the one side is scratched up and the other side won't be scratched up. So it's pretty obvious which side is which. And then I take that magnet off and I put it down and I scratch the next one. So I actually do this to a lot of them. And now here's the trick. When you're magnetizing multiple Carnifexes, you want them all polarized the same. Now for kids out there that don't know what polarization means yet, let's say I have two magnets. Let's pretend these are two magnets. So I have one in the body and one in the arm. So the arm's going to stick to this magnet. But if I put this one in the body like this, and I keep this one like this, when I go to try to stick the limb on, they won't stick. Push as I might, they repel. And so we need the poles, the north pole and the south pole, whatever it happens to be, to line up. And so what I like to do with all my Carnifexes is have them polarized the same way. And if they're all polarized the same way, then that means I can interchange their limbs, so that one Carnifex that won't repel the scything talon and the other one will take it. And that way, if I want to interchange things, like for example, crushing claws, it only comes with one set of crushing claws per Carnifex. But in one of the new Apocalypse rules, there's a formation that you can have that allows the Carnifex to have 2 sets of crushing claws. Well, if they were polarized the opposite way, I wouldn't be able to attach them. But since I polarize them all the same way, I can have 2 sets of crushing claws, or 2 sets of twin-linked devourers, or 2 sets of death spitters. And so they're completely interchangeable, which is nice. So since I've already done one, the way I figure out which way I want to do it is I have my scratched end, and I see, does it stick or does it repel away? And this is repelling away, so I can't push it in there. And so what that means is I want the scratched end to be out, not in. But the scratched end is repelling away, so that means that the scratched end should come out like it. So they'll both be the same direction. So take my handy dandy super glue, and I just put 4 little dabs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Moisten my hand because super glue sticks to your hand really well. But if your hand's moistened, it'll still stick, but then it comes off really well. So I have the scratched end and I just push it on there. I just push it into the green stuff, so it embeds, so it's nice and deep. So it's as deep as where the plastic would have been. And I just repeat that 4 times. Sometimes if you put the magnets in the wrong way, very hard to get them back out. In this case it would be easy because I could just pop it out from the other side. But for other parts, you just need to be very careful. Alright, so those are in there. It won't take it very long for those to dry, and the green stuff actually already gives them a pretty strong bond. So I'm going to take one of the scything talons that I made from the other one, and I'm going to quickly test to make sure that this is right. See, it sticks, 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 and it sticks, so we're good. So that means that they're polarized the same way as this Carnifex, because it sticks to that Carnifex as well. So that's it for that part, and now we're just going to attach these 2 parts together with our normal plastic glue. There we are, and then we will attach the top part as well. And there we have the first part of the Carnifex. I leave this actually, I don't add on the bottom yet. Some people actually even magnetize the top to the bottom. You can really take this to any extreme that you want. So we need to set this aside and let it completely dry, because we're going to be drilling holes here and here as well. And if this plastic glue isn't completely dry, it's just going to start pulling it apart. So we'll put that aside, and what we'll do next, while we're waiting for it, is we can glue the bottom together so that we have the tail and the legs all glued together. And we can also work on the head. So the first thing we'll do is glue the bottom together. So here we have the tail part. We're just going to glue this little ball on. These legs are heavy enough that you have to hold them in place. Most of the plastic parts that you're assembling with your miniatures, put a bit of plastic glue and you hold it for a few seconds and it's done. These ones are a little heavier, so I like to hold them just for a little longer so that they have a chance to really bond. So those 2 pieces are now set aside. So now we come to 3 parts that we're going to be magnetizing. We're going to magnetize the limbs, so that's 4 limbs. We're going to magnetize its head, and we're going to magnetize its back. Let's start with the head. So I've just done one head here, and this is the one with enhanced senses. Normally you have this little extra spike here, and that goes into the, see how there's a hole right there? When you're normally assembling it, this would go into that hole. But since we're going to be drilling our own holes, we just clip that off. Then we will glue the head together. Now, if you're going to be using the drill bit, we're going to be drilling a hole right here. This is kind of tricky with the drill bit because this is circular, so it's a little harder to do. So you're actually going to want to leave your head long enough for it to really dry solid. Because as you start to push this in there, it'll actually push it apart, so you'll have a harder time doing it right. So you want to leave it for a good 20 to 30 minutes for it to really solidify. Since I'm going to be using the Dremel tool, I don't have to wait quite as long. But I'm still going to put it aside to let it dry a bit, and I'll start just preparing other parts for the magnetization, and then I'll come back to this. Let's look at the weapons. There's one of 2 ways that you can do this. The traditional way is to actually drill the hole right into the arm, and then you stick the magnet into it. Or I could use the Dremel tool and drill it. I find that takes far too long. So what I like to do instead is simply clip off the end. You gotta be careful when you clip this off, because this little piece right here is gonna go flying. So make sure you point it away from any faces. Now with the scything talons, all I have to do is basically clip it where it looks like it would be right. But when it comes to the weapons, they're a little more tricky because they don't always go on flat. So if I cut it flat, the weapons will be kind of funky when I go to stick them on the magnets. So what I do then is I put it on the magnet and I just look at it to see where it should be cut. So wherever it touches, that's where I cut it. So in this case, I'm going to cut it like this. Look at this one. We're actually going to rebuild this part that I'm cutting off with green stuff. See that? I just did those 4 pieces in a matter of a minute, whereas if you drilled all 4 of them, it could take you a few minutes. So I like to cut corners like that, especially when it's not going to matter in the end. You're not even going to notice it. So once that's done, why don't we magnetize these first, and we'll let the head dry a lot longer. We still have lots of leftover green stuff, so once again I get my hand wet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make small balls of it, this size. It's about the same size as part of the arm that we just broke off. I'm just going to stick it on there. I don't even have to use super glue or anything. This green stuff is adhesive, so it sticks on its own. This doesn't have to be perfect by any means because you're going to be doing more to it right after. And another piece. So there you have it. 4 pieces with green stuff. Before I go any further, let's go back to magnets. We still have our scratch side. So do we want that facing up or do we want it buried into the green stuff? Well, if we had it facing up, then it would be facing this way. And as you can see, it pushes away. So in this case, we want the scratch side buried. It's going to be pushed into the green stuff this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the super glue. I'm just going to put a little dab on the end of each of these. So I'm going to take this and then I just squish it into it all the way. So you end up getting this ring of green stuff that bulges out around it. And that's what we're going to use to reconstitute the arm. So I'm just going to get my hand a little wet and then I'm going to squeeze it and I'm going to form the arm back together. So all that plastic that we just took off, this now reforms into the arm. The bottom's not too important. You notice that that's not the cleanest. It's because that gets covered up. We just go through with our thumb, or if you have sculpting tools you could use them, but I find that a moistened finger works just fine. You see how that just sticks on there and it looks like it's part of the arm? So I'm just going to quickly do that to the rest of them. Alright, so that's the arms. So let's do the head next. So there's 2 parts we have to drill. We have to drill in its neck slot. This is really easy. We just turn on our Dremel tool. See that mess? Who cares? Nobody's ever going to see it. Then we just grab a wad of green stuff. And we mash it into there to make up for that mess that we just made. I'm just going to put a little dab of super glue. It's going to be a little tricky because all the magnets around it try to push it in a different direction. So you have to kind of slide it into place. There. That's the one side of the head. Now this part of the head, this is where I like to have the Dremel tool with a point. Because really what you should do, so I don't really advise that you do this, what you should do is you should have a vise or something that can clamp onto this other than your hands. Because I'm going to be drilling directly like this. So if I slip, I'm going to take a little chunk out of my fingers. But since I have a point on the end of this, it'll be a little easier to guide it. But I still suggest that you use a vise. So just be extra careful. I go slower. I take my time with this so I don't accidentally slip into my hand. There, an ugly hole. Who cares if it's ugly? Because green stuff will fix all your problems. So take a bit of green stuff, moisten my finger, mash it in. Okay, so now that we have the green stuff in there, we're going to stick the magnet in. So we're just going to check the polarity first. Alright, so that sticks. So take the magnet, stick it on. Who cares if it looks ugly because it gets hidden. That's the head. So you do all the heads just like that. And the last piece is this back, or the front part of the carapace, whatever you want to say. And that'll hook on right here. We're going to drill a hole right here and right here. Let's go ahead and do that with our Dremel tool. So I take off some of my handy dandy green stuff. So the last thing we got to do is we got to drill a hole in this so that it can be magnetized as well. Stick a bit of glue. And there we have it. It's all good. See that? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The only thing that we have left to do really is take the body and glue it in here. Now you might be wondering, why did I even bother to tell you to use the 1/8 of an inch magnets? Where these are used is in one of the weapons. And I'll show you which of the weapons. The Venom Cannon and the Barbed Strangler are a 2-part weapon. One part sticks into the body like this, and the other part is down here. You can see that they're supposed to attach. Now I could just glue these. In fact, I have done it in some of it. And so they're just glued together like this, and then they just clip in with the magnets. But you can also magnetize them. And so it's the same general idea, except these are smaller connections, so we're going to use a smaller magnet. I'm just going to drill out a little bit, and then I'm going to use a 1/8 magnet rather than a 3/16. And then this part of the arm, we're just going to snip off the end. And then we're going to use the same strategy that we did before. We're going to put a bit of green stuff there, tiny dab of glue. Take one of the small magnets, not worried about the polarity of the first one. I just mold the green stuff on there so that you can't even tell that it was all snipped off. See how that's going to fit nicely in there? And I take a tiny bit of green stuff, not too much in this case, put it in there. And then push it in. See? Stick together. So now when I go to put it on the Carnifex, it'll actually stick together. I have to just use a bit more green stuff to clean it up, but you get the general idea. So there is the Venom Cannon. And that is how you magnify a Carnifex.